Hey guys, it's Tom Box, and welcome to the very first damage report for Genesys. Okay, for damage report Genesys, I took all of this data here, okay? All of these names, all these things, and we converted it into what you guys like most, a spreadsheet. There's just way too much to make individual slides, so I'm gonna go down and talk about it and the pattern of the upcoming format. Don't worry, I still got the deck potentials of the upcoming format, which ones are good, which ones are bad, the updated the draw engine and the free stuff versus the premium stuff, and we also update the list for the hand traps as well. But let's take a look at some of these changes here. So make sure you guys hit the like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. This was a lot of work. So looking at the very first set of stuff here, we have the hand traps. The overall directions of hand traps, they're going down in points, because the current format of Genesys does not allow people to play very many hand traps, but one deck definitely stood above the rest when it comes to hand trap cap. That was Vanquish Soul. And because the deck was so cheap, they just had so much more space compared to everyone else. People were playing like triple Ash in their deck, and that automatically gave them a significant advantage and ultimately won 2 events in the YCSs. So, but overall, they want everyone else to have access to hand traps. So Impulse Spiral, Nibiru going to 5 points. I think the significant ones here is Nibiru going to 5 points, Ghost Ogre going to 3 points. These are cheap hand traps that people can shove into their deck as long as the main deck does not consume a bunch of those points that you need so much of. And then there's also Retaliating Sea, Impulse Flying Sea. These are new cards being added into the list, and they were free, but people did play them in their side deck, and Flying Sea and Retaliating Sea definitely deserve to be on this list, because Retaliating Sea technically is also like a floodgate, because it kind of turns into a macrocosmos. I don't know, you guys be the judge. Now for generic cards, there's multiple angles of how they're hitting generic cards. For the releases, they just want you to play more of it, and some of these draw engines, they don't even work. So Mirage of Nightmare, a banned card, that is going down to 0 points. But why isn't it like happening in like the regular modern TCG? It's because hand traps. I would say 99% of the time it's going to be hand trap being the reason. Hand traps in this format cost points, so most people don't have the points to allocate to Mirage of Nightmare. As they kind of increase it, you might see more people playing Mirage of Nightmare, being able to dig into the Dominus Impulses, being able to dig into the Nibirus. It's quite possible that you're going to see something like that because it's cheap enough to play, and Mirage of Nightmare no longer costs anything. That is kind of a bigger surprise. And the other big surprise would be the card of Safe Return. So any graveyard-based deck that have the additional 33 points available for people to add in. And as for the other tech cards that most people aren't playing, because Monster Reborn, there's also Premature Burial. A lot of these cards previously cost too many points, and now they're getting the reduction now. And many of these cards, even Baron de Fleur, which was at 85 points, unplayable. 80 points, literally pretty much still unplayable, unless you can somehow find a way to synchro into a 10 without costing you other points. And then you don't actually get to play any like good hand traps because you did this. So the point balancing is still something that they're definitely testing, because there's another trend in here. Of course, they're removing the access to floodgates overall for everyone. You can take a look at all the barrier statues. They're all at 70 points each. They're even more than before. They've got Grisaille Prison, which was a free card. Most of these values are at 0, and then you see these reds. Yeah, that means most of the time it was free. And the base value, man, let's just say a lot of the floodgate stuff are getting hit. And you can see Grisaille Prison also moving up in price in the real world. It was like a $2 super rare. It's above 10 now. It's a bit ridiculous. Might drop a little thanks to this particular points list, but overall, things are getting hit left, right, and center, and including the draw engines themselves, such as Pot of Extravagance and also Upstart Goblin. Upstart Goblin also took a hit here, and it's because they were just too free in terms of deck building. And sure, it's still pretty cheap, but you can't build a deck just having a bunch of fillers to maximize consistency. So they're making you play these additional cards. And if Upstart is going to cost you 3 points, what's preventing you from adding a different hand trap into the deck? But how long till they modify these points to the point that it kind of looks like modern, right? They can't push it towards that there's too many hand traps where we're playing against like 15 other hand traps to be able to start our play. It wouldn't make any sense. So The other thing that they're definitely hitting are all the FTKs. I mean, they mentioned it before. They're going to go into clickbait, well, the unrealistic clickbait combos, as they call it. And so there's a lot of stuff getting hit. Reversal Quiz, Beals, DD Dynamite. There's a bunch of things going to 100 Gem Knights. So there's a major adjustment there. Next, search adjustment. So what was previously known as the search value, which was 33, they're trying to adjust that so that more decks are able to play. So anything that was previously at 40 have reduced by 5 points, and anything that was at 35 have been basically reduced to 25. And they're basically testing the waters, because putting a search card at 33 really hinders deck building, and a lot of deckers aren't capable of building their decks because you have modern decks that have guaranteed point reduction, basically give a handicap for the new decks. They can't compete at all. So what's the point of playing the old decks? They don't even want to play their old decks because the new decks have the least amount of points required to play them, such as Art Mages, which is a very successful deck now post ban list. And so Union Hanger going down to 25, Tanky to 35, Fossil Dig to 35, Sword Soul Emergence to 25, and Reinforcements on the Army to 35. And these were all just, I guess this is just search points tuning. Board Breakers, Heavy Storm, Feather Duster, Lightning Storm, all the back removal have been reduced by about half, right? So yeah, 10 points for the Heavy Storm. Like, I think I could probably side 3 copies of this and I would still see value in it. Lightning Storm's still pretty expensive because it hits both front row and back row, but Super probably being one of the Board Breakers that got its points adjusted. It was definitely the most popular one because one, you don't have any response to it, so I think it definitely deserves to get its point bumped up. Okay, now that we're done with the generic stuff, looking into the actual ban stuff in terms of, I guess, decks that got completely nerfed. One deck for sure, Branded. You can just look at how many cards are on the list here. If you want to just play one of every card, you can, because there's even more cards on that list that you are not allowed to play. So that's a very, very big limitation on Branded. I think they took a very significant hit. Branded Fusion got bumped up to 40 points. So then you have to pick and choose which of your Fusion package are you playing. So your toolkit gets limited because you have more than 10 cards that have over 10 points each. So that's going to be your biggest limitation. And even Mercurier, one of your Omni Negates or one of your Monster Negation, that is hit to 5 points. So you have to really be careful of how you adjust your list. And you have to play Branded Fusion. Most of the main deck stuff, I don't think have any points. I think Cartesia might be the only one that has points, but everything else is kind of free, except your extra deck. Your extra deck is literally the entire wallet. Glad Beast got most of its stuff reduced. Like Glad Beast Geyser somehow was at like 20 points. They reduced it back to 0 because it's just a board breaker. Now don't get me wrong, I think the way that they approached this particular format initially was that they look at all of the best decks of the past and slam points into each one, just so that, oh, this was like world's winning deck, oh, this was like, oh, this deck won YCSs before. They just slam points onto this so that it doesn't become overly dominant, but I think they kind of solved their own meta issue by just playing out 2 major events. Tomb Keepers. This deck is still going to be very amazing. Only one card gained points, which is Treasure of the Kings. So we'll see how that kind of turns out. But they're definitely not just like destroying a deck for no reason. Megalith got somehow a bump in here as well because this is the spell card that gives them the search, so the search engine gains something. Sword Soul slash Tenyi, because Emergence was already a gain, reducing in points. Astronaut got the points reduced from 33 to 13. I think they realized that, hey, there's no links in this deck, making it very hard for you to activate a Tenyi effect. Tenyi effects are very difficult to activate, and so yeah, they're definitely getting rid of that. But I think there's a way to kind of bridge Tenyi, if you ask me. If you want to bridge Tenyi, you can bridge it with the adventure package. You just need a non-tuner monster, right? And so those tokens definitely can facilitate that. Then there's the number monsters. So these number monster packages, they've just been kind of tuning the numbers to make it a little bit more playable, but not giving you access to stuff that they don't want you to have access to. So if something was costing 100 points, there would be like a card that costs 1 point, so you can't bridge them together. Well, now they kind of switch it. Now it's the 80-21. The 21 pushes it just right over. So the Numeron Dragon is, well, now 21 points. It was 1 point because it was part of the Draglubian combo. So they had Draglubian 100, so they just made Numeron 1. and so you can't play it. But now they made new Dragubian 80, but they also made Numeron Dragon 21, so you don't get that easy OTK. So you don't get to play these one-card OTKs. I think they're really trying to deter people from doing it, and the Utopia package is kind of also part of the same deal. Sub-Terriers, they got even more accessibility because the Hidden City is now dropped down to 13 points. K9 actually got a bit of a power adjustment balance. I don't think K9s were topping very much, but if you knew how to play K9, I was actually gonna play K9 because it was my go-to deck of the format, and I realized that the points were just pretty fair to build a really solid deck. But don't get me wrong, right now if you want to play K9, you can only play one of every name here. Nash Knight is no longer spammable, which is a significant hit also to Vanquish Soul, because Vanquish Soul was playing as a rank 5 spam. That is now not possible because Nash Knight also costs 10 points. Werewolf costs 10 points for the hand rip and the multi-attack, and then the Roy got bumped up from 10 to 15, making it so that you're gonna have to make some choices here because your point allocation is gonna be a lot more difficult when you can't get the additional names. And Jokol got bumped up from 13 to 15. Now we're in those ranges where the overlap of these numbers don't make any sense. You're hitting the 30s, the 60s, the 90s, and that's even before you shove in a single hand trap into the deck and non-engine. So you have to play a much weaker non-engine. But don't get me wrong, K9 is still one of the most consistent decks, even if they have to play one copy of everything, because they have triple 7th Tachyon, triple Chaotic Elements, and also triple copies of whatchamacallit, Case of K9. So they got 9 searches by default. And what really hurt them was probably all of the draw cards gaining points. And now it makes it even harder. So they damage the consistency and the ability to recover. You might be forced to play 3 lanterns into this build now. But if you're playing pure K9, you're going to be playing 3 anyway. But most of the important names, I think you're going to be forced to revive them in some way or form. And that's going to be the more difficult choice. Then there's Crimson Dragon update. Seems like Crimson Dragon went down from 100 to 80, but all the most busted cards, they were just refreshed to 21. So Cosmic Blazar, Red Eyes, King Calamity, and then Stardust Siffer, Divine Dragon, all to 21 points. Mitsurugi got slammed by this. Guess what? One of your favorite cards, Habakiri, that's now at 100 points. So they adjusted it so you still can't play Prayers and Ritual together. There's a limit right there. They just made sure you had that limit. I don't know how I feel about this, but hey, maybe we're done seeing Mitsurugi for a little bit. Dynamorphia took a slight hit as well with the Domain and Frenzy gaining 1 point. That adjusts how they can build their deck slightly, but like Rexstrom already costs so many points already. Ninjas finally got the attention they deserve. They reduced their points down to 5 for each of the bosses, and that's good. Kaliga now is 100% banned because it's a Floodgate. It's at 100 points, so if you're gonna play Invoked, can't play this card. Punk, well, Foxy 2 can gain 5 points, but there's actually no other Punk cards on here, but you can adjust what you think you see in the extra deck to allocate your points to that instead. Like, there's a limitation. Like, Punk might seem free, but the limitation will come from the extra deck and the other engines. And also, Emergency Teleport costs a lot of points, so it's not that free. Then there's the rank 4 Utopic deck. Dododo gained 7 points, and Evil Swarm Ouroboros went from 67 to 100 because it's part of hand looping. Radiant Typhoon had the Totem Birds and the Cicada King also gained up in points. Again, it's all about the balance. Generators was doing the whole True King Calamity like craziness, and so they kind of made people unable to get access to these particular monsters. So if you're gonna play Generators, you're playing Generators. You're not just playing, you know, VFD Turbo. And then there's Rose Dragon. Exorcister gained some points as well, and they're also one of the strongest decks out there. Evilzar Lars also gained a little bit of a boost. And then they're also removing Gemini FTKs. Gishki Loop was in the game, and now they got rid of it. Alright, so you can see Gust Kraken's at 100, Mind Angus is at 1. So all of these stuff you want to play, if you want to play Gishki, you cannot play. You can't play Gust Kraken. It's just a limiter. And then Spright, 20 points down to 10 points for the starter. I think there's a lot of potential there because Spright was already pretty strong, and most Spright cards are technically not on this list. Okay, it's just Gigantic Spright, and this card This gives them a lot of wiggle room to build their deck, and I think that you're going to see a lot more play because naturally in Engine they have so much negation already, but they might play a bit more aggressive now. Then there's Vanquish Soul. Holly Sue finally into the point range she deserves to be at, 33. And then Jiaolong, Ryzen, and the, I guess it's just these two, they're all bumped up to 11. This is a significant change because if you want to play 3 Holly Sues, guess what? You cannot play your Jiaolongs or your Raisins. So Holly Sue essentially is a one-of in the deck, making it a lot less hand trappy and therefore more of a card that you kind of have to sack into. So in the same range of Izuna, because Izuna for K9s is kind of in the same, well, contention here. Raisin is a search card, and they made it more than Stratos, and we talked about this in the pointless prediction. And Jiaolong also is another search card, so these are just competitive reassignments. Yubel got a little bit of a weird adjustment because the throne went down, but Phantom Yubel went to 76, so essentially you can't play Phantom Yubel. And Grave Squirmer went to 0. Airlifter, Rescue Ace is going down in points. They can't play Lynx, so that's a very big thing that they can't play, and they're kind of freeing it up. But they also gain points because Impulse went up in points, but you don't necessarily need to run those. But it's kind of an interesting change here. And also Hot Red Dragon, Archfiend Abyss, 20 points. These are all the things that you really truly have to care about. That's the entire rundown of the entire list, the directions that they're going. You're seeing more hand traps, you're going to be seeing a lot more board breakers, and you're going to see a lot less branded Vanquish Soul and K9 because they are significantly hit, and you're definitely probably not going to see Mitsurugi. That's the damage report here. Let's take a look at some of the updated lists. For draw engine and consistency, the major changes on this list would be the Mirage of Nightmare moving into the free range, and also hand trap dropping down, so you might see more people playing this to dig into hand trap. In particularly, Nibiru is probably one of the biggest changes here. Upstart Goblin costs 3 and Pot of Extrav costs 10. Makes a lot of sense. This is a draw 2 card, and then you have Pot, sorry, not Pot, but Card of Safe Return going to 33 points. So that's the essential change that's shifting around for your draw engines here. For your hand traps, there's not really too much change here. There's 9 cards total, but overall the point range is lowered, so it's still going to be interesting how you're going to be deck building with them. But number 1, Cerebus, goes Ogre, goes Mourner. Now for the decks that I believe that are going to perform very well in this upcoming format, Archmages, they only really took 1 hit, which is the Nerva, that was part of their deck. But essentially, Exorcister, yes, they might have less hand traps, but they can also shove in different kinds of hand traps because of the way things are going. Yes, it does hurt to have the Michaelis and the Pax at 10, because if you want to max out those numbers, that's going to cost you 60, and therefore that's 60 less points of hand traps worth of hand traps that you can put in there. All right, so it's a big limitation. Fire King and Direct Fire King, it's like playing a modern deck in Genesis, so I see a lot of potential in that. That deck is very, very annoying, and there's not too much on that particular list that's hitting Fire Kings right now. So you can enjoy yourself some double board wipes right there. Luna Lights, I still see really high potential with that deck because it's a deck that can play heavy poly, they can play poly, and again, they have one of the nastiest boss monsters available, even without the pendulum skills assisting them. They just need to land a Liger Dancer and you're gonna have a pretty tough time, even if you're trying to dig for a kaiju. All right, it's not that easy to dig for one, but hey, if they land Liger Dancer, you're likely still going to face an OTK. Punks is the other one that I have a lot of hopes for, because only Foxy Tune is on this list. And there's also Regenesis, which most cards aren't on there except for the Regenesis itself. And it's a deck that does not require to play an extra deck, so you have a lot of space to kind of push the boundaries with the non-engine cards. As for the maybes, Chimera got a point reduction from the Nightmare Apprentice, going down in points, going to 20, which is kind of nice. So I see pretty good chances of me being able to shove in additional hand traps or maybe even more engine to give more consistency to that particular deck. The deck was already pretty good in my opinion, but I think it definitely could use a little more. Spright is the other deck that I think is going to be really annoying because you don't really need to tap into the extra deck all that much to develop Monster Negate. You can get access to Toad. Ice Barrier package is still available. It's a strong deck, okay? Lightsworn, still kind of in the same position. Time Thief, same position. Millennium Exodia, still the same position. Sword Soul. Sword Soul gain a little bit of freedom, but I don't know how they're going to be able to play without like a full like full power Tenyi engine. Tenyis required those link pieces to get, you know, free reign by being good in your hand. Now you have to rely on generating some sort of non-tuner first before you get access to your Tenyis. I don't know how I feel about it, but hey, they lowered the points on multiple things here. I think there's potential. But Dolce, we've seen some success with this deck already, so it definitely bumped up from the sleeper category into something that has a lot of potential. And also, it's a deck that can run Herald of the Orange Light. Sleeper deck, Rescue Ace, imagining what the set for. Leo Less kind of moved down. Branded got shoved down here as well because they got hit so significantly. But the reason why Branded isn't fully gone is because you don't really need to play the entire package of Branded to have a good Branded deck. I think people will be able to solve something along those lines, but it's still a lot of points dedicated into that extra deck. Drytron is still Drytron. I think they took a little bit of a collateral hit thanks to the other ritual deck, Gishki, and then there's also True Draco, which is still sticking around for a little bit. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover every single deck here, but you guys let me know down in the comment section what you think is going to be an amazing deck. Doomsday could be in here. I think any of the new archetypes coming up could be in here. I think the upcoming deck build set isn't designed for modern, but it's kind of interesting. Well, okay, except for Eneacraft because it's a pendulum archetype. I think the other two could potentially see a bit more play when it comes to being in Genesys, but I don't think they've made any splash in OCG whatsoever, so that's something to kind of look forward to. But this is what I think so far. Leave it down in the comment section of what you think is going to be a very good potential deck. My money right now is still on Fire King and the Tomb Keeper deck, but I wouldn't sleep on Art Mage as well because it's such a dangerous deck with so little things hit. It's just really, really powerful. All right, that's all I have for this one. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.